Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
28 years of loyalty, and in the end, I was just a seat they needed to empty. That was the moment I realized I didn't matter. Not to them, not anymore. My name is Ellis Drayton. I'm 59 years old, and for nearly 3 decades, I built the digital backbone of Ashcroft Dynamics, a mid-sized tech firm in Richmond, Virginia. Not some flashy Silicon Valley name, but a solid operation with real contracts, real infrastructure, and real clients. The kind who didn't shake hands unless they trusted your soul. I had written their first client database in '97 on a Windows NT box in a leaky basement. I stayed when others cashed out, when the company teetered on the edge during the 2008 crash, when servers literally caught fire in 2013 because our CEO thought cooling systems were a luxury. I stayed, and I made it work. They used to call me the ghost in the wires, a little joke around the office. I didn't like the spotlight, but if something broke, it was me they called, even at 2 a.m. I was the guy who kept the lights on, often quite literally. I knew every byte, every corner of the code base. I had access no one else did. And I never once abused that power. Until the day they gave me a reason. It was a Monday. Gray outside, humid like it always is in June. I was halfway through my second cup of Sumatra when I got the message. Alice, 9 a.m., director's office. Mandatory. No subject. No tone. Just cold. I walked in and saw them both already seated. Mason Caldwell, the director, in his usual custom-tailored plaid suit, sipping from a mug that said, "Hustle harder," and next to him, someone new. A kid, early 30s, with slick-back hair and a smugness only family privilege can buy. His name was Chase. I would learn that later. At the time, I just knew what was happening before anyone said a word. "Ellis," Mason started, trying to sound warm. "You've been with us a long time." I nodded once. 28 years, 4 months. Exactly. And no one's discounting what you built here. You're a legend, really. But things are shifting. We're bringing in fresh leadership. New eyes. Someone who can align with the board's vision. I looked at the kid. He didn't even flinch. Just kept scrolling something on his phone. "Your position as Chief Systems Architect is being transitioned. Effective today." He paused, probably expecting a reaction. I just stared at him. "So, I'm being replaced by your nephew?" I asked flatly. Mason exhaled like this part hurt him. It didn't. Family helps family, Ellis. You know how it is. "Sure," I said, standing up slowly. "No problem." I smiled. "I'm sure his future will be very bright." He smiled back. Relieved. Thought that was it. Thought I was just going to walk. I did. But first, I went to my office. It was quiet. Too quiet. Like the company already knew it had made a mistake, but didn't have the words for it yet. I sat down at my workstation. Logged in. There it was, the architecture I built. A living, breathing system worth $760 million in government contracts, security frameworks, and custom APIs that only I truly understood. I opened a terminal. Typed a few commands. No alarms. No alerts. No traces. Just code, moving through the bloodstream of the company like a whisper. By the time I shut my laptop, the damage was done. They wouldn't feel it for hours. And by the time they did, I'd be gone. They say you only know what something's worth when it's gone. Turns out, when you delete a custom-built infrastructure with no documentation, no backups, and a security system that only answered to you, people notice pretty damn fast. I was already out of Richmond before the first internal alert went off. I drove south, toward Asheville, North Carolina. Mountains, clean air, no one asking me to reset their password. I left my work phone behind. Wiped. Left my badge on the dash of my car, parked across the street from HQ. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't wave. Because what would I say? Thanks for the knife in the back? By the time they realized what happened, the heart of Ashcroft Dynamics was already bleeding out. You see, the system I built wasn't just a database. It was a living, reactive ecosystem, security clearances, encrypted data flows, internal access layers, external vendor syncs, client-side protocols. All of it interwoven with a logic chain that only I had the cipher for. They thought they could just hand over my role like it was a set of keys. Chase, Mason's golden boy, was in way over his head by lunchtime. I imagined a scene like this. Multiple departments locked out of core systems. Project timelines crumbling. Clients calling, asking why their data portals weren't loading. Legal breathing down their necks when government auditors noticed anomalies. And Chase? Probably still clicking around the interface, trying to figure out which window was the dashboard. They brought in outside consultants, of course. Cybersecurity experts. Forensic data teams. Retired NSA contractors. They charged millions. And they all said the same thing. There's no recovery. Whoever did this knew exactly where to strike. I kept quiet. Legally, they couldn't prove a thing. They had no policy in place that restricted administrator access the way it should have been. Why? Because I wrote the policy. And I made sure it protected me as much as it protected them. My non-disclosure expired 2 years ago. No non-compete. No signed contract for the custom architecture. It was all handshake and trust. And Mason Caldwell broke that trust. 3 weeks after I disappeared, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Ellis? This is Jordan Markley. You probably don't remember me. I remember, I said. Accounting, 2009. You kept a bottle of tequila in your bottom drawer. He laughed, nervously. Word got around. About what happened. Listen, I've got 3 clients looking to exit Ashcroft. They want someone stable. Someone they trust. And just like that, the first piece fell into place. I wasn't gone. I was free. I didn't burn a bridge. I lit a torch. You ever feel that moment, when your lungs fill for the first time in years? That's what starting over felt like. I rented a small space above a bakery in West Asheville. Nothing fancy, exposed brick, rattling pipes, a view of a dumpster. But it was mine. I bought a used Herman Miller chair off Craigslist and built my workstation from parts one trusted, not what a procurement guy picked from a spreadsheet. I called the company Drayton Systems. No catchy buzzwords. No slogan. Just my name, because in this business, names matter more than logos. Within 2 months, I had 6 contracts. All former Ashcroft clients. They didn't care about press releases or flashy rebrands. They cared that I answered the phone when something broke, that I remembered their kid's name, that I could explain complex security architecture in plain English. You see, when I was at Ashcroft, I wasn't just a system architect. I was the bridge between code and people, between chaos and calm. And once I left, that bridge collapsed. Clients jumped like rats from a burning ship. Only difference? They weren't fleeing disaster. They were following me. Ashcroft tried damage control. Mason even had the nerve to reach out. Sent me a message through a mutual acquaintance. Let's bury the hatchet. Maybe consult with us short-term while we rebuild? I didn't respond. The only hatchet I was interested in was the one still buried in my back. By the end of the 3rd month, I had grown to a team of 4. No MBAs. No VC funding. Just people like me, quiet, brilliant, overlooked. I hired Fiona, a genius in back-end compliance, who used to work for the IRS before they cut her team. I brought in Marcus, a cloud infrastructure guy from Denver who could do in 2 hours what most firms needed a weekend for. And I found Lex, 24, wild hair, brilliant mind, zero fear. He reminded me of me before the boardrooms and betrayals. We weren't flashy, but we were deadly efficient. Every time I saw another article about Ashcroft hemorrhaging clients, I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just poured another cup of coffee and got back to work. Because revenge isn't about shouting. It's not some dramatic showdown. It's quiet. It's precise. It's watching someone who undervalued you realize they handed their kingdom to someone who couldn't tell a firewall from a fire drill. Success is the best silence. And I was finally quiet. You don't think much about ghosts until they show up at your door. It was a Thursday late fall. Golden leaves scattered along the cracked sidewalks of Asheville. Business had been steady all week, and I was elbows deep in optimizing a security patch for a logistics client when I heard the knock. 3 soft taps. Hesitant. Like regret was standing on the other side. I opened the door, and there he was. Mason Caldwell. Gone was the arrogant posture. Gone was the smug smile and $900 jacket. He looked smaller somehow. Not just physically. His entire presence had shrunk. His eyes flicked around the office. Saw the wires, the screens, the quiet intensity. Saw what real work looked like. "Ellis," he said, almost like a question. I crossed my arms. "You drove 6 hours to say my name?" He gave a dry, humorless chuckle. "Can I come in?" I thought about it, then nodded once. Not because he deserved the courtesy, because I wanted him to see it. I let him sit across from me. Offered no coffee, no warmth. "You've done well," he said, eyes scanning the whiteboard full of diagrams Lex had drawn that morning. "Really well." I didn't answer. After a moment, he sighed. "We're in trouble, Ellis." I raised an eyebrow. "You don't say." "Our board's threatening to pull funding. Government contracts have been suspended pending investigation. Chase, well, let's just say he wasn't ready." "He ever figure out how to unlock the admin panel?" I asked. Mason didn't even smile. "No." Silence hung between us like a thundercloud. Finally, he leaned forward. His voice low. Calculated. "We're willing to make this right. The board wants to offer you a senior executive position, salary, equity, full control of infrastructure. Clean slate." I stared at him for a long moment. Then I stood up, walked to the window, looked down at the street. A kid on a bike zoomed past, earbuds in, no idea that a corporate vulture was behind me, trying to pull me back into a cage he lit on fire. "You think this was about a title, Mason?" I asked quietly. "I gave you 28 years of my life. Missed holidays. Fixed your systems during hurricanes. Took calls during funerals. I built your company from duct tape and belief. And the second you had a family member in a blazer, you made me disposable." He stood too, defensive now. "I made a mistake." "No," I said, turning back to him. "You made a choice. And now you get to live with it." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "You don't get to walk into my house and offer me chains with a shinier lock." He left without another word. And I stood there for a long time, just breathing. Not angry. Not vindicated. Just whole. That night, Lex found the security cam footage and synced it to the office speakers. Every time the door opens now, we hear Mason's voice. "Ellis." And then the door clicking shut. It never gets old. People talk about legacy like it's some trophy you hang on the wall. Something static. Polished. final. But I've learned legacy isn't a moment, it's momentum. It's what keeps moving long after you're gone. 6 months after Mason walked out of my office, Ashcroft Dynamics filed for bankruptcy. Turns out, when your systems collapse and your clients leave en masse, investors don't stick around for sentimental speeches. The media called it a spectacular implosion of corporate negligence. They blamed it on technological mismanagement. Funny way of spelling arrogance. Meanwhile, Drayton Systems grew faster than I ever expected. We didn't advertise. We didn't network. We didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. We picked up a Department of Transportation contract that Ashcroft once begged for. Then came private defense contractors, financial institutions. Even a few of those West Coast giants started sniffing around, asking about discrete infrastructure rebuilds. I wasn't just rebuilding what they'd lost. I was building something they never had. My team became my second family. Fiona built our compliance division from scratch. Clients adored her dry wit and lethal precision. Marcus trained our junior hires with the patience of a mountain monk. And Lex? Hell, that kid wrote an entire zero trust framework in 2 weeks, then casually said, "I was bored." I made sure they were paid what they deserved. That they had health coverage, time off, real support. I promised myself I'd never treat people like Mason treated me. And I kept that promise. One morning, I got a letter. Real paper. Elegant ink. It was from Jordan Markley, the old accountant who had first tipped me off when Ashcroft began unraveling. He had retired, moved to Oregon, spent his time hiking and painting. Inside the envelope was a single line. "You didn't get even, Ellis. You got better." I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk, right next to the original Ashcroft server room diagram from 1997, the one I drew by hand, just to remind myself where I started. Sometimes I walk downtown, grab coffee, watch the young tech consultants in their tailored hoodies, chasing venture capital and speed. They don't know my name, don't recognize me, but they use systems I designed. They walk paths I carved in silence. And that's enough. Legacy isn't what you leave behind when you're done. It's what you build while they're still trying to replace you. And me? I'm just getting started.